it's time to finally sit down and talk about all the books that I read in April. I've generally had quite positive books, I think, this month. There was a couple that I either really didn't like or I DNF'd, and I will get onto that. But I thought, firstly, I'm just going to do it in order. So there will be some kind of manga mixed in with the other books. I hope that is okay with you guys. Without further ado, so the first book that I actually read in April was The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and I have spoken about this book a couple times in previous videos, but I absolutely loved this book. This is actually my first book of Leigh's, and I was really impressed by the writing. It's not too descriptive to the point where it ruins the story, but it was just really beautiful, and I loved the perspectives of the characters in this book. If you don't know what this book is about, we follow a girl named Lucia, and she is a maid for a couple. This couple has no children. I'd say they're kind of in their 30s, and this is set in kind of Spain just after they lost, so like the Spanish Inquisition type time. Religion is very heavily played into this book. Our main character has a Jewish background, and at the moment the Jews were persecuted at that time, and this actually really feeds into the magic style in this book, which I really loved. If you don't know, her magic is kind of by spoken word, and she uses it for little things like if the bread is burnt, she might like unburn it, or say she has to go pick up some fish from the market, she might like double the fish. What happens eventually is her housekeeper basically figures out she's got magic. She said, look, none of the neighbours like me. Can you make us look better by doing some magic tricks? So she does some magic tricks, some dinners, and eventually gets roped into a competition of sorts, and we go from there, and there is a little romance in there. I really enjoyed that. Our romantic interest isn't like a typical dark haired, dark eyed, grumpy man. He's he sort of almost reminds me of the characters in Castlevania, the vampires in that a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I love a historical fantasy with some magic realism in there, and I think if you like that as well, then you will like this. So next up, I finished Fruits Basket Volume 1, and I loved this manga. Like, it's bizarre. I had no idea what the hell was going on. It follows this sort of teenage girl who basically is left alone because her mother dies, which side note is really sad, and then she ends up like camping in a tent because her granddad's like, you can't live with us, girl. She's like, okay, I'll just live in a tent. And the land that she's living in the tent on is the land of these like boys that she goes to school with, and they're like, look, you can't just like live in a tent, that's not great. So she moves in with them. Anyway, she finds out they're all members of like the Chinese zodiac, so one of them's like a rat, the other one's a cat. They're all basically different animals, but they only turn into them if they're touched by like humans. So if she like bumps into them or she like hugs them, they just turn into the animals, and she's just like, oh, you're so cute. But that's basically the book, and there's other like things going on. There's different people pulling different strings, but I actually really enjoyed it. And so much so that I actually went and read the second one later on in the month, and I finished that as well. So I have got the third one waiting for me to read it. But yeah, it was just a really cute, cozy manga, and I definitely recommend it. The next book I read was Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. Another really great romantasy type book. This was great because it was like Viking setting, and I hadn't read that many books set in the Viking kind of Norse mythology style, so it was really nice. I definitely recommend it if you really liked Game of Thrones, just because there's a lot of scenes that maybe you liked in like the Jon Snow romance. Also, there's a lot of kind of scenes in there that reminded me of Lord of the Rings as well, so there's a mishmash of scenes in there that maybe kind of drawn upon other shows or games even, but it was still good nonetheless. It follows our main character, and she basically, the way this world works is some children are born with a drop of God's blood in them, or goddess's blood in them, and so they manifest like a certain power, and hers is basically the fact that she's like a shield maiden, and she creates this like big shield, and so a lot of the lords that want power hunt her, basically because like there's a prophecy that whoever can manage her and put her in charge and wield her basically will be the king of the land of Scarland. And obviously there's a romance in there as well. Just, yeah, straight up good Viking time, and I enjoyed it. The next book that I read was A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, and this is the like Hades and Persephone retelling romance. I think I gave it like 4 stars. It was basically just 50 Shades of Grey, but in a Greek god setting. It was okay, it wasn't bad, like it was a good romance. I don't think I want to read the rest of the series though, because there wasn't that much plot to keep me invested. Like the characters are alright, but again, very like kind of base level and very much 50 Shades of Grey inspired. So yeah, I don't think I'll read it again, but it was enjoyable and it was alright. Just disappointing because I really love like Greek heavy mythology, so it wasn't quite what I was expecting, and it's very like urban fantasy style as well, so I just don't know if it worked really. But yeah, like I said, the romance was good, and if you just want to like 50 Shades romance style, then I'd say this is for you. Next is Cat and Gamer Volume 2. I picked this up because the first manga was just really cozy and cute, and this one basically is exactly the same, just cozy and relaxing and cute. I don't know if I'll pick up the next volume just because they are very similar, and I don't know if I want to spend my money on that again when I could just kind of easily reread them. It just follows the adventures of the office worker and the cat again, and she basically buys loads of cat trees, and the cat just likes to climb on the cat trees, jumps in some boxes. That's basically what happens. It's just a cute cat vibe, and my cat is just sat behind me right now, and that was the vibe that I wanted. So yeah, it was good. But I go on to the next book, which is the Dalagut Dream Department Store, and this was like not what I was expecting at all. It was so like heartbreaking but like cute and cozy at the same time. I didn't realise what it was going to be like. I think if you're a fan of Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, then I think you'll really like this. It kind of has a similar structure in a way. I suppose that's kind of the Korean style of structuring. But we kind of follow Penny, and she's going for a job interview at the Dalagut Dream Department Store, which is a department store that sells dreams to people. They come in at bedtime and they're like, I want a good dream to escape, I want a dream to go off an adventure. Each floor of the department store sells a different type of dream. Like there's one guy who sells like nap special dreams, or there's one that's like dream for animals, and we just kind of follow through that and the characters in the store and the different people that make dreams, like the dream makers, and why people dream. And it actually is really like thought-provoking and really made me think, like, why do I dream certain things? Like there was one guy in it, and his job is basically to make dreams for animals, and there was one story that's just so sad that involves like an old dog, and he was just basically like sad because his humans were away, and he was like, I can't dream because I'm really anxious that they're not home yet. And I was like I was crying. But yeah, this is actually a really, really cute book, and I think the next one is actually coming out later this year, so I definitely will be picking that up. And like I said, it's nothing like the cover suggests, but it also is at the same time. Like the fluffy, weird rainbow colours are in there, but there are many, many layers to this book, and I really, really enjoyed it. Next book, I was so excited when this came in the staff room at my work. It's Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Such a good book. I love this. I read it so fast. I gave it like 5 stars. It was just everything I wanted in a book. That was that. If you liked Fourth Thing, if you like Hunger Games, if you like ACOTAR, I think you'll just like this book. Honestly, it was a vampire version of like the Hunger Games, and there was a real good romance, enemies to lovers in there. The characters were really well developed. It was just a fun time. Like, you know, there was like predictable moments in there, but like it was good nonetheless. I really, really enjoyed it. I just, you know, Aurora, the main female character, is just stabby and angry, and she hates everyone. And then our male love interest is a vampire, but he's not like other vampires. He is a sensitive vampire. But he's powerful, and I just really loved it. It was so good. It was a good time. I can't wait to get the second book. I think it's like the Ashes and something. I'll put a picture of it here, the second one. But yeah, I definitely recommend reading this if you haven't already. Next up was a proof copy I got, and it was A Magical Girl Retires by Park Se-leon. And I actually DNF'd this like halfway through because I felt that it would have been better if this book was maybe like a graphic novel or a manga. I know it said it was inspired by manga, and you can heavily see that in the sense that the writing isn't there to support it as an actual novel. It really needed like the pictures of like the graphic novel or manga to keep it going, because a lot of the times I didn't know what was going on, or we jumped from scenes very, very fast, and like I said, it just really reminded me of a manga. It should have been a manga, I really think. Like, it had the premise to be really great. You know, like it said in the blurb, like a 29-year-old girl who is 29-year-old woman, sorry, who is, you know, depressed, and she wants to like solve the problem of the world, and she's got credit card debt, but that's not really in it at all. I don't know, like we didn't really touch on these themes that much, and I felt like we could have touched on them a lot more, and we could have gone into a lot more depth in certain themes. She basically like gets enlisted by these magical girls, which is kind of like Sailor Moon style guardians, but yeah, it lacked something. I think it would have been better as a manga, and that's what I'll say. Give it a try, because it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. Next, I finally read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This has been like staring at me for a while, like please read me, and this was so good. I read it so fast, made me so emotional. Like the romance in this book was beautiful, the letters, and like it was just, I made me cry thinking about it. Like the whole kind of wartime style romance was just like heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, and just make you want to like hug all your loved ones and be like, I love you. It's great. Yeah, like I love the world that this is set in, and the fact that like two gods are at war and people are choosing to fight for the gods, like and I love that like there's magical objects in this, the magical typewriters I think is really cool, and the main characters are really interesting, and the main female character has a lot, like she goes through a lot in this book. Like she's a poor traumatized girlie, and I feel for her, but yeah, I love this, and the ending made me very angry, very emotional. I finished it and I was like seething, and I finished it late at night, so I had to go to bed, and I was just lying there thinking about it, and I don't know if I'll read the second book because I've heard mixed reviews. Not everyone says it's great. A lot of people say it's really frustrating and they did not enjoy it. So yeah, I want to know what happens, but at the same time I don't, because I'm not prepared. Yeah, there was just a lot of emotions in this book, and it was really great and I loved it, but yeah, emotional. The next book I read was A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saft. And this was kind of similar to Divine Rivals, I guess, in the style of it's like a YA romance. My main problem was like I'm not really sure what the setting was meant to be. I think it was like a 1920s style, which is quite different to some stuff I've read, but at the same time it wanted to almost be like a medieval fantasy at the same time, but with the use of like taxis and phones, so I was a bit confused. And the religions in it were like obviously meant to be based on like the Jewish and the Catholic religions, but she just gave them different names. Yeah, like I said, I was a little bit confused with the setting, but overall like it was a good book. I really enjoyed the characters, and I enjoyed the story and the setting of this hunt. and you know, the main female character coming to terms with the fact that like her mum isn't great, and that her mum actually is a bad person, and just because she's your mother doesn't mean you have to owe her anything just because she's, you know, looked after. Like, she didn't even look after, she just left her kid for like a month and just was like, bye, look after yourself. So yeah, I liked that kind of development of her understanding and growing as a character. I do feel like it could have been a bit of a shorter book, like there was some just extra stuff in there that felt a bit prolonged, but in general I really enjoyed it. It was very slow burn, slow pace, so if that's your vibe then I think you'll like it. And like I said, the alchemy style magic was really interesting, but yeah, good book. 3 stars I gave it. I next read the manga Victoria's Electric Coffin. I don't know if I'll read it again. It's basically like a Frankenstein kind of style retelling, but like Dr. Frankenstein is a 13-year-old girl. It was okay. I really liked the illustration style, like that was really cute, but the story was just a bit non-existent. I had no idea really what was going on, so yeah, I don't think I'll read the next one, but it was cute nonetheless. Lastly, I was very disappointed by this book. I got a proof copy of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. I had to DNF this after about 80 odd pages. I was so angry because the premise of this book was really good and I was really invested in the world and the story, but my god, it was hard to read. Like, firstly, there's a lot of world building in there and she doesn't really explain it, so you just kind of have to read the glossary and revise it a little bit, like have an exam in that, and once you pass your exam then you can read the book. And secondly, her writing style, it's just not for me. It was so clunky, and like it was like, you know, those descriptive writing tasks you have to do at school, and you just trying to fit in like as many different descriptions and metaphors as you can in one paragraph. That was the whole book, and I could not. It was so hard to get through. I kept zoning out. She just kept describing things. I don't need to know that a teardrop feels like a glass bead and then it's like fire on her face and then it makes her think of this past trauma, when also all I wanted her to do was reply to the other character. I'm not joking. The character dialogue would be like, ask question, whole page of thinking, and then reply, and then after the whole page of descriptive thinking you're like, what were we even talking about in the first place? Yeah, I don't know. I was really excited for this because obviously like dragons and like elemental gods, and it was meant to like romantasy. I think it's meant to kind of similar to Throne of Glass, which I'm actually reading at the moment and loving, but yeah, the writing style just was not for me. I think I've seen other people really love it, and maybe they love that descriptive writing style, and that's fair enough. Like, I don't have to love what you like, but yeah, if you do not like heavy descriptive writing, you will not like this book. It's kind of like Prairie and the Orange Tree but on steroids. Yeah, maybe one day I'll read it again. It made me feel like I was dumb because I couldn't understand what was going on. So yeah, I don't know, it was just a bit too much and too heavy for me. That is it for my April reading. I'm actually reading Throne of Glass, but I will update that in next month. Fully reading, I think, because it's not finished yet. And yeah, I had a good, interesting month, mainly fantasy books. I really need to branch out a bit more and read some other non-fantasy. I actually received a box of books from Penguin Publishing, which has a wide range of fiction and non-fiction in there, so I might give that a go. I actually might give Book Lovers by Emily Henry a go because I received that in the little box. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from my channel, and once again I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.